Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. I want to get right to the phones. Richard, you are on the line with Representative Pocan and myself. Richard, you there?
Well, yes, good afternoon. I just wanted to make a quick comment about the tax reform bill that the Republicans want to propose. And it seems to me that we can't compare our nation, which is obviously running a huge debt. We can't compare our nation to smaller nations where everybody's making a race towards the bottom to lower corporate taxes. All these corporations that are making millions and millions of dollars, we are basically the policemen of the world. And if you're going to be the policeman of the world, you need funds to fund that big, huge military that the Republicans want to have. And we can't compete with the smaller nations that are lowering their corporate tax rates and expect to balance a budget with such a small corporate rate compared, to other industrial nations in the world.
Richard, thank you so much for your question. Representative Pocan?
Sure. Well, Richard, thanks for your question and comments. So I think it's going to be far more difficult to do tax reform than they seem to think. I mean, if they couldn't handle healthcare, and granted, that's a very big part of the economy, but I can tell you at least 20% of the meetings I have in Congress are groups coming and talking to me about tax reform. And my staff say even a greater amount of their time is spent meeting with groups talking about tax reform. So they want to lower the corporate rate. So even though, they claim they want to look out for the middle class and everyone else, they're not taking us up first. They're taking up lowering the corporate tax rate, which while is a higher rate when compared to other countries around the world, the difference is the effective rate, what people actually pay, is in the teens. So, I think because of all the tax deductions. So, a lot of what they say is rhetoric. What they're once again doing is lowering taxes for the wealthiest 2% for pretty much everyone in the Trump administration and pretty much everyone who are the corporate masters of the Republican Party in this country. And we all are going to get ignored because you're going to have less revenue for the very programs that I think really benefit the mass of society. So this is one that I think it's going to be a bigger undertaking than they think, but really just look at what they're doing. They want to take care of a very small percent of people and cut their taxes at the expense of the 98% of the rest of us. And we should remember that as time goes on.
And they want to massively increase spending at the Pentagon while, right? I mean, like, as you've said, a budget is a moral document. It is it shows exactly where your values are. And the difference between Trump vision, which gives huge giveaways to billionaires and Wall Street and the corporate executives at the expense of working families, and spends enormous amounts of money, increases the Pentagon spending while cutting critical programs like Meals on Wheels. It's just a vision for a very dystopian future, right? Where there's a very few amount of people who have everything and everyone else is left paying the bill. Horace in North Carolina, you're on the line with Representative Mark Pocan.
Good afternoon, sir, and thank you for taking my call. Sir, I wanted to know why the Democrats are so silent on the fact that the Trump administration closes the doors and they get certain laws, like they have this thing with the internet now. They're dumping coal into the streams. They're doing away with all the environmental protections that we have. I mean, they're doing so many things against the whole country. Why aren't the Democrats standing up and putting this on the air?
Horace, thanks so much for your call. Representative Pocan?
So Horace, this question I think comes up every week from someone, and I'm more than glad to raise it again because it's probably the biggest frustration of many of us in Congress. If the mainstream media doesn't report it, It didn't happen. So as Thom mentions, we Press Progressive Caucus, just as one example, has multiple press conferences. It seems like almost every week where we're out there on something: $15 minimum wage, protecting Social Security, protecting healthcare, and it just doesn't get covered by the mainstream media. In fact, if you watch just the major networks, you would probably think there are 20 people in Congress, and that's about it. They keep going back to the same people. They talk about the fights between the two. That helps to sell detergent during commercials, and actually covering what's happening doesn't necessarily do that. So there are a lot of people in the Democratic Party. In fact, I would say almost everyone. I can't think of many who aren't fighting most of these things, and we have organized collective actions to do that. And yet, if they don't get picked up, unfortunately, people don't know that around the country. So it's a frustration that I and many others certainly have, but be assured we are doing this on a regular basis. It's just so hard to get those words out. They seem to cover Russia right now. They understand the Russian involvement in the elections, sort of. They understand where Mar-a-Lago is. But, other than a few subjects, we get very little coverage.
So I want to disagree with only one. It's a quibble, but it is, you said mainstream news, and I just want to say corporate media. I want to say the corporate media that have a sort of a lock on the stories that get out there. They strategically ignore stories, right? It's not by accident that they don't tell these stories. And I'm going to actually share one right now. I have an email from a reporter. Maybe I won't call out exactly, but it's broadcast television. And, we, as Representative Pocan had just said, there's a press conference right now with Representative John Lawson, who's introducing a bill that 80% of the Democratic caucus in the House have sponsored to expand Social Security, which is what 80% of the American people agree with. We emailed to try to get media there, and we will have media there, and we also have truth tellers like Thom Hartmann. But the email I got back, and it was just a few words, and it said, "Why is this news?" Right? That's what we're up against here. The corporate media literally don't understand what is news because they're not in the news business. They're in the selling soap business. Their business is the commercials in between the news. Representative Pocan, sorry, I just had to add that in because, I see it just as much as you. Every day you wonder, why is the media not covering these huge stories